Hi, it's been a while since I made one of these videos, huh? Okay, I really haven't gotten over talking about SpongeBob video games, and since a lot of cool things has been happening to SpongeBob games, especially since I left, I guess today's my day of coming back to talking about SpongeBob games. Typically, I would have started where I left off, which I think would have been Atlantis SquarePants, but I rewatched my older videos and I realized how rough and fucking bad my older videos have held up in terms of both points made and general editing skills. So today, I'm here to remedy that by starting the series over in a newer and better style. Today, I will review and give my retrospective on SpongeBob's first solo video game, not Nicktoons Racing, but SpongeBob SquarePants Legend of the Lost Spatula. I feel like without any more waiting, we should just jump into this, but first I should give some context to this game. This game was released on March 5th, 2001, exclusively for the Game Boy Color, and it was developed by Vicarious Visions and Engine Softwares. What a fucking name, huh? Oddly enough, this would not be the last time either of these companies would be doing anything with any other SpongeBob games. Hell, Vicarious Visions even did 2 other SpongeBob games for Game Boy Advance. This game came out very early in the Yellow Sponge's life. Hell, Season 1 had aired its last episode 2 days before this game's release. And it shows later that most of this game is very Season 1-ish, and you'll see what I mean later. The game came out and it was met with very meh reviews. Game Rankings gave it a 60%, IGN gave it a 6 out of 10, and GameSpot gave it a very rough 3.8 out of 10. GameSpot had particularly stated in their review that one could argue that SpongeBob SquarePants Legend of the Lost Spatula is geared towards a younger audience of a TV series, which would explain the game's simplified gameplay and lack of variety. However, while the plot is endearing and the characters will no doubt appeal to the series fans, there is no evidence to suggest that children would actually enjoy playing a game this unremarkable, let alone adults. While these reviews are definitely something to take into mind, let's see how good the game is for ourselves. You get thrown into this game with the legal screens and the title screen, which has a very catchy chiptune cover of the SpongeBob theme song. From here you get introduced into the story where SpongeBob is on his unicycle in Jellyfish Fields and finds a mysterious statue of a different sponge holding a spatula. Curious on what it is, he goes and asks Mr. Krabs on what it is, and Mr. Krabs tells him that the olden city of Palm Bay was ruled by a sponge who was the master fry cook. However, a fucking volcano engulfed the entire town into flames, and the Flying Dutchman stole the spatula years later and has still kept it. 2 questions. For one, is this based off the fucking Palm Bay volcano explosion? Second off, how do we know this won't happen again in Bikini Bottom? Like, just imagine that episode. Yo, what's good, Mr. Krabs? How are you today, man?
I'm over here stroking my dick. I got lotion on my dick right now. I'm just stroking my shit.
Oh my fucking god! Anyways, once SpongeBob hears about this, he decides he wants to go and find the spatula and become the ultimate fry cook. That brings you into the gameplay, and it's already here where the cracks start to form. First 10 seconds of gameplay, and it's already fucking up. For one, you can see a singular screenshot of gameplay, and you will immediately see what is wrong here. Why is SpongeBob so big? He takes up a good bit of the screen, and it makes it hard to see both what's in front of you and behind you. Factor that with the very janky controls, and you can already see why this game got these reviews. SpongeBob moves very slowly on the ground to the point where you would want to jump around to get more speed. But the thing is that his jump height is dependent on how long you hold the A button. It feels like you're charging a power move, and it already feels janky, but since SpongeBob is so big that the whole screen has to follow him, it makes it impossible to see what's below you. Typically, this wouldn't be that important, but once you realize that this is an adventure platformer, it makes it a very tedious experience. Anyways, the main thing you try and do here is get 4 oven knobs so you can battle the Flying Dutchman at the end. But the thing is, this game isn't like a level by level type thing like how it should be, but rather an open world game on a Game Boy Color. This wouldn't be so bad if it just extended to the way the world is like laid out on a map per se, but each level is so congested with different paths that it makes it hard to pick the right path to go down. Hell, calling some parts of the world levels feels a bit inaccurate, as parts like SpongeBob Street and Sandy's Parks are not only inaccurate names, but feel closer to hub worlds than like levels. Like on SpongeBob Street, you cannot earn or get anything, but you can go down roads that will take you to levels like the Carnival or Lagoon. Another thing with the level design that I hate is the moving platforms that are so small they're hard to land on. It's already hard to see where you're going with SpongeBob's jumping, but pair that with these tiny ass platforms and you can really quickly get irritated. Another thing I really hate with the level design is the way enemies work, as since it's so hard to see anything in front or behind you, enemies can kind of just bomb stop you out of nowhere. Actually, ignoring how the basic platforming is already an obstacle, there are enemies in every single part of this game. There are 3 types of categories that I like to put these assholes in. The first is the Bubble Bass type of character where they walk around and do nothing, but if you touch them, they attack you. All of these guys attack you in the same way, as they either clench up like in Lagoon or spin their arms like the pirate crew near the Dutchman's boat. It's really irritating how these guys can launch you back, especially when you're low on health, but that's for later. The second type are throwers. They'll either spit up what I believe are rocks, like in the Carnival or the Desert level, or they will throw whatever's in the bucket at you in the last level. And the last type of enemies are these flyers, and they are such an inconvenience to deal with, as they are so tedious to catch or get rid of. All of these enemies are very inconvenient to deal with. They're hard to beat, but not because of genuine challenge, but rather because this game feels so cheap with all the shots it has on you. Another very big inconvenience in this game is health, as thankfully you are given infinite lives, but base SpongeBob can only take, like, no joke, 2 hits. I know there are costumes of the Power Wing and the Hall Monitor outfit. I think they might add an extra health bar, but even then, this game is very unforgiving with his enemies, and only having 2 hits and you're back to the checkpoint. It's very annoying. You can get health pickups in these chests scattered across the stage. Weirdly, health is portrayed as clothes, as the more health you lose, the more naked you get. If you get hit R2 times, then you get butt naked, and it makes for a cool reference to the Whipped Pants episode. There are also some weapons you can pick up. You start with a bubble wand net that can shoot bubbles straight up, which is pretty good for upwards combat, and a jellyfish net, which kind of helps for those annoying flying enemies. You have to get other weapons to progress through the game and other stages, like a Krabby Patty launcher or just a spatula that does what you think it does. The arc it has when it shoots is a bit low for my liking, but it can be pretty cool in some boss fights. The net launcher is useful for just getting all enemies, but it does come with limited nets, and you'll have to find more in the aforementioned chest. And finally, you get these spring shoes that in my playthrough, I used once. They're kinda useless when the regular jump is already so high, and so far, this element has been the most positive thing I've went over, but there is one big issue that really holds it back. In order to switch weapons, you no joke have to pause the whole game, go to the equipped item menu, and pick the one you want, which doesn't sound that bad, but it really does break the game's flow. They had such a strong gameplay mechanic going, and they fucking ruined it. On the bright side, the boss fights themselves are actually pretty cool. It's surprising for me to say something good about this game, but hey, it's true. They have a bit of challenge to them, but you do not have to keep switching the items and pausing the game, so it has a very clear and uninterrupted flow, which feels very nice compared to the rest of the game. The first fight's with a jellyfish, and you use the bubble wand to hit the jellyfish a couple times. Eventually, he gets caught in a bubble and it pops, and you get an oven knob. A lot of other boss fights follow the same type of flow, where you use a weapon you just got to kill it, including the final one where you just launch patties into the Dutchman's mouth and he fucking dies. The game ends on one of his many cutscenes, and that reminds me, let's talk about the game's graphics and cutscenes. Now back to the negative parade, as this game looks alright at best and very muddy at worst. Like, all of the characters just look so bootleggy. Like, SpongeBob's whole body is way too long, and the colors are as dark as Season 1. Granted, I really do like some of his sprites, like him getting hurt or flying back. They look pretty cool and expressive. Characters like Sandy look like a hamster, and Mermaid Man looks senile in the wrong, but pretty funny way. The environments could look pretty good at times, like SpongeBob Street and Goo Lagoon look pretty good all things considered, but do not be mistaken, as the environments can also look awful at times. I'm looking at you, Kelpozoid Jungle. It's just also muddy with the dark and limited colors. The cutscenes are just little slideshows that oddly enough look brighter than the actual sprites in game. The art in these slideshows are just sometimes stock art put on a Game Boy Color, sometimes they're original drawings that can actually look really accurate to the show, like the one with Patrick holding his pants. But some of these look like shit, like the cutscene picture with Sandy looking like a demented Disney character, or these two where SpongeBob looks so wonky, and don't think I cannot see you over there, Squidward, you look fucking dumb. Also, just for revity's sakes and shits and giggles, in all of the episodes of the SpongeBob game series I'm going to be doing, I will have a counter for how many times this piece of Mr. Krabs stock art shows up, so here's the first point. Still, this game looks so muddy on average to the point where it's hard to give it many compliments. And then there's the music. Okay, look, the music isn't outright bad, but since I had to retry so many areas and the music always restarts when you have to redo an area, it gets repetitive real fucking fast. The title theme sounds really good, and in a vacuum, so does everything else, but when I have to listen to it over and over and over and over again, it makes me really want to rip my ears off. The sound effects, on the other hand, aren't bad. Look, this is a Game Boy game, and the only thing it has to do for the sound effects not to sound bad or not be grating, and it gets that done. None of the sounds are too loud or quiet either, so the sound effects are really the most consistent part of this game. Man, that's fucking sad. Yeah, it's really sad that the most consistent thing this game has going for it are the fucking sound effects. However, there is something about this SpongeBob game that I really do like, and that's how it sets itself apart from other SpongeBob games, because it feels a lot like a Season 1 era game. For one, the colors are more basic things like characters and more standard locations feel closer to the drained out colors of Season 1 than anything from Season 2 or 3. A lot of SpongeBob's animations are also ripped from Season 1 episodes, like the Bring It Around Town dance or him ripping his pants. Also, a lot of the character dialogue has an early feel that resembles Season 1, like Plankton's award-winning line, "I went to college." This all makes sense when you realize that the game came out like 2 days after Season 1's finale had aired, meaning that a lot of what the crew had to base the game off of was probably mid-Season 1 stuff to maybe some early Season 2 stuff. Something that I think could confirm that this game was made during early Season 1 is that there was a disc that has the game assets on it somewhere. It looks like this was made by Vicarious Visions, and if it was anything like the Super Sponge disc that had the whole development cycle leaked, then this could confirm when the game even started production and hopefully what the reference was to go off of. But unfortunately, I could not find a archive or re-upload of whatever was on that disc, so hopefully it shows up one day. While I do think that it's kinda cool that Legend of the Lost Spatula uses a Season 1 vibe to differentiate itself from other SpongeBob games, it kinda sucks that this is the game Season 1 got to represent, because this game sucks. Overall, this game is really fucking bad, man. Like, the game is a fun boss fight at best, and a frustrating experience at worst, which is a shame. I went into this replay through of the game with my standards already set kinda low, but this managed to fumble over my already low expectations. It's not the worst SpongeBob game ever, not by miles, but it's definitely awful. This game is a janky platformer that is very poorly designed, both in terms of the system it was released on and being a platformer in general. In the ranking, oh yeah, I'm ranking all these games on a tier list and all together, this game gets an F on the tier list, and unfortunately it's the only game so far, so it's number 1, but trust me, that will not last long. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you to Long Play Archives for the footage. I would have recorded my own, but I have the Activate Windows watermark, and there's no way in hell I'm leaving that in. Join me next time when I talk about SpongeBob's home console debut, SpongeBob Super Sponge. This has been Gosak, I'll see y'all next time.